What is an addiction many people don't realize they have? Say what you will about the studies, but weed is 100 addicting. As a chronic smoker for years who has to quit because I got pregnant, that shit is hard to quit. I'd still go home and go through any container I'd love to see if there was anything to smoke, and my anxiety went absolutely insane when there wasn't. You might not have withdrawal symptoms, but your brain definitely gets conditioned to it. Caffeine? You'd be surprised how many people, young, old, male, female, black, white, hardworking or disgustingly rich, have a caffeine dependency, and when or if it comes to give it up, they're like a spitting cobra trying to come down off it. It's kinda scary how insidious caffeine is, and considering it's a poison produced by plants to stop animals eating them, it's also ironically cruel too. Phones, coffee, sugar, and alcohol. Many people downplay all of these for one reason or another. But if you need coffee in the morning to wake up, you're an addict. If you are constantly eating sugary stuff, addict. And don't even get me started on the kinds of people who think it's fine to drink almost every day as a norm. Jesus, instant gratification dopamine hits. In our society there is a massive expectation that everything be quick, convenient. Everyone is glued to their phones on TikTok or Reddit or whatever. You can download an app and get laid with no commitments. There is very little expectation for effort or time investment anymore. I feel like we as a culture are a bit obsessed with addictions. Unless it's disrupting your relationships or career, you're allowed to enjoy things that aren't productive. If anything, we're addicted to shame and guilt. That is not to imply that we aren't completely unself-aware of other moral failures. Porn. It's so normalized now. I had a breakthrough at some point and realized I had consumed pornography in some form for every day of my life from an early age, and it is surprisingly more difficult to stop relying on it than you'd think. It's not just a problem for men either. Dopamine. It takes so many forms. Social media, porn, food, you name it. To each their own. And the problem is that it always takes more stimulation to create enough dopamine in our bodies because we're getting used to high levels and it doesn't affect us as much. I feel people who gamble never really seem to realize how bad their addiction is. Whenever you try to talk sense into them, they seem completely greed-fueled, like they're willing to risk everything for that chance to be rich. It's scary as hell. Might get downvoted for this one, but addiction is a rather specific term with clear boundaries and lots of research to back it up. Many of the responses here mention bad habits, but certainly no addictions. Trading stocks, penny stocks, short long with the typical gambling mentality. This trade will make up for the other losses. So far my system works. I lost a lot of money with neo-brokers. Gambling. First it starts off with making a small petty bet with your coworker, and then all of a sudden you're betting on horse races even though you never cared about them before. Food addiction. Specifically bed. If you are addicted to drugs, you just need to quit doing drugs. Harder than it sounds, I know. With bed you must take your drug to survive. People. Codependency is the mother addiction of a lot of other addiction. Unhealthy relationships creates unwanted emotions that we want to escape from by doing unhealthy stuff. This question, apparently, since it gets asked almost every day. And the answers are often by people who don't know the difference between addiction and habit. Addicted to validation. Whether it comes from video games, getting likes on a post, comment, from work, etc. People stay chasing validation in most any form. Politics. The amount of people that watch nothing but Fox, CNN or MSNBC all day is ridiculous. If this is you, seriously, that isn't news you're watching. There are far more alcoholics out there than people want to realize. Needing a couple of drinks per night means you've got a problem, Brenda. It never fails. If you point out to a cigarette smoker that they are a drug addict, they will reply, "No, I'm not, this is legal." Alcohol. By the time you realize you've got it, you've got a lot of brain rewiring to do that you don't even want to do. Weed, alcohol, and cigarettes. They're also normalized. Alcohol and cigarettes are more socially acceptable than milk, exercise and healthy eating. Being scared to go a day without an hour's run, or too scared to eat a cookie. Scrolling social media forever. Weed, food, masturbating, sugar, but these are pretty well known. Phones forever. Phone. There better be some good wrist specialists in the nursing home for us. The fact sugar isn't the top answer shows just how widespread and nuanced the situation is. Their phone. My GF is always on her phone and struggles to go 10 minutes without it. Have you ever heard of chocoholics? There are people like that, but with alcohol. Guilty as charged. Guess I need a doom scrollers anonymous support group now. Going to bed by early morning and getting up in the middle of the afternoon. TV? Mine is always on cause I'm single and like hearing dialogue sound words. Cortisol. Weirdest addiction that made me go oh now it all makes sense. Motorcycle riding. 1 week without riding and I get withdrawal symptoms. Oxygen. I swear most people can't even go 3 minutes without some oxygen. The withdrawal symptoms unfortunately are universally fatal. Posting the same topic over and over again for karma farming I guess. Anything that gives you dopamine. Dopamine is the real addiction. Not getting anywhere out of home. Staring at my screen all day. Probably the device that they are using to read this post. Sipping at a cup of coffee. Something wrong with my face? They don't realize they have. I would say sugar or caffeine. Junk food. Social media. Too much TV. Shopping. Porn. Misery. Self-sabotage. Excuses. Hatred. Victimization. Weed. It's me. I love it. But it's still an addiction. Sugar. Eating and drinking way too many sweet things. From what I see since COVID, being entitled assholes. Phone. Social media. Porn. Coffee, booze, attention, screens, TV, computer monitor, tablet, phone, etc. Coffee. They don't see it as a drug 'cause it's a norm.